When a mass disaster strikes, we all picture the same heroes, right? Firefighters, paramedics, trauma surgeons, all running towards the danger. But what if I told you that one of the most critical experts in all that chaos is someone we almost never see? Someone whose skills are almost perfectly designed for the absolute worst-case scenario. To really get it, we have to start with the chaos itself.
All right, take a look at this number. 50%. Just let that sink in for a second. What on earth could that represent in a disaster?
Well, that number, that's what happened in Haiti back in 2010. During the earthquake, literally half of the country's hospitals were either wiped out or seriously damaged in an instant. This wasn't just a setback, it was the total catastrophic collapse of their entire healthcare system.
You see, in any massive disaster, it's never just about the buildings falling down, it's all the systems we take for granted. The power grid goes out, clean water disappears, supply chains just stop. I mean, think about the 9/11 attacks. Even the phone lines failed, cutting off communication right when it was needed most.
So that brings up a really important question. When everything falls apart, when resources are scarce and the need is just overwhelming, who has the exact training to step into that void and manage the human side of the crisis?
And the answer, well, it's probably not who you're thinking of. It's the anesthesiologist. Their job goes so much further than just the operating room. At their core, these doctors are crisis specialists.
Their toolkit is basically tailor-made for a crisis. It's built on 4 pillars. First, they have this incredibly deep intuitive knowledge of drugs and how the human body works. Second, they are experts at resuscitation. We're talking literally bringing people back from the brink of death. Third, they spend their days managing the absolute sickest patients in critical care. And fourth, they've completely mastered pain management. You put all that together, that's the foundation for their unique role when disaster strikes.
Okay, so that's the theory. But what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's dive into some frontline examples where these skills were put to the ultimate test. So let's jump back to Haiti, right into the middle of that collapsed system. Remember, 50% of hospitals are gone. So responders are dealing with unsterile conditions, no oxygen, and almost no anesthesia resources whatsoever. So what did they do? This is where it gets incredible. Anesthesiologists showed up, and by using regional nerve blocks, techniques that don't need big general anesthesia machines, they made 1,000 surgeries possible. They managed unbelievable amounts of pain and used their deep knowledge of pharmacology to stretch the few drugs they had, making every single vial count.
Okay, now let's switch gears from a natural disaster to a man-made one, the Boston Marathon bombing. This time, the problem wasn't a lack of hospitals. The challenge was a sudden, massive wave of patients with devastating blast injuries, especially to their arms and legs. In that moment, the thing that was killing people was bleeding out. And think about it. Who has extensive, daily experience with tourniquets in their normal job? Anesthesiologists, from all the orthopedic surgery they do. So they were able to step in and teach everyone, other staff, volunteers, you name it, how to apply them correctly. And they directly stopped people from bleeding to death right there in the ER.
Now, their role expands even further when the threat is something you can't even see. I'm talking about chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear attacks, what experts call CBRN events, or a deadly new virus. This requires a completely different level of expertise. Just think for a second about how different these are. In a chemical attack, you've got people whose airways are closing out from toxic agents. In a pandemic, the very act of saving a patient's airway, intubating them, can spray the virus into the air, infecting everyone in the room. In both situations, protecting the medical staff is just as vital as treating the patient.
And this is exactly their sweet spot. As the absolute masters of the airway, they're the first person you call when a patient can't breathe. They also know personal protective equipment protocols inside and out. That lets them design the safest possible treatment plans to protect the entire healthcare team.
But, doing this work, being on the front lines of human suffering like that, it carries an immense weight. We've talked about all the incredible skills, but we have to talk about the human cost.
This is a quote from Dr. Devin Kearns. He was an anesthesiologist who responded to the 2017 Las Vegas shooting. He said, "I witnessed a scene I will never forget. I saw multiple fatally wounded patients with their loved one by their side, hoping, praying, and longing for the moments prior to the terror." These are the burdens we don't always see. The endless hours with no rest, the constant exposure to horrific injuries, the emotional trauma. As Dr. Kearns pointed out, the victims are wounded physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And you know what? So are the people trying to save them.
The crisis doesn't just end for these responders when the news crews pack up and leave.
So, when you put all of this together, what's the big takeaway? It's that the role of the anesthesiologist in disasters can't just be reactive. It has to be proactive. It has to be built right into our preparedness plans from the very beginning.
This is what we mean by the modern disaster anesthesiologist. They're not just an expert in the OR. They're a system-level crisis manager who gets involved in triage, on-scene resuscitation, and big-picture planning. They are a force multiplier for the entire medical response team.
Look, at the end of the day, disasters aren't a question of if they'll happen, but when. Our systems are going to be tested again. So the real question we have to ask ourselves is, are we truly ready? Are we using every single expert we have, every hidden hero like the disaster anesthesiologist, to their absolute fullest potential?